Yep, about one more second. All right. You are live. We are live. Get my email, old dog, sent you a new trick.
Yeah, I got you. That's cute. You have to throw and evolve as usual, you know. You're becoming a dinosaur and becoming extinct, right? Growing and evolving. Okay. My father who just turned 90.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. He just goes and evolves. He still likes to go in the office, so. His brother goes to.
Okay, let's see what we got here. Hey, Josh, you got sound check and all that stuff? Yeah, there. You can do a couple more, but there's a lot of them everywhere. Okay, everybody. This is an old dog attempting new tricks. A few years ago, I had a radio program on every Tuesday night, and I drive to Clearwater to this remote station, and it was a great little experience for 45 weeks, although the signal was so weak that nobody could get it. So it really didn't matter what I said. So what we're attempting to do now is, these are called real beach talks. And the concept is that the barrier islands, Pinellas Barrier Islands, are so different than the mainland that once we realize the differences, whether we're a buyer, a seller, or an agent, we're able to offer more knowledge to our clients, or we'll know for our family which way we want to go with our real estate decisions. So let's start out with barrier islands. I'm not sure how well you'll be able to see this, but this map is a map of Pinellas County. And over here is Hillsborough County. Hopefully you can see that. So if you land at the airport right here, this is Hillsborough County, and Pinellas is this big mass of land over here. And to get from Hillsborough County to Pinellas County, there's 3 bridges. There's the Courtney Campbell Bridge that goes over to Clearwater. There's the Howard Franklin Bridge that goes down. It's I-275 that goes down through Pinellas County and over the Skyway Bridge at the bottom. And then there's the Gandy Bridge that goes over to from the MacDill area in Hillsborough County over to Pinellas County. So when you're going up 275 to the airport across the Howard Franklin Bridge, and traffic is backed up like it usually is, you can take a shortcut across the Gandy Bridge. So generally when a buyer comes into town, I'll give them this little overview and say, well, if you come over to Pinellas County borders on Tampa Bay, and it borders on the Gulf of Mexico. And also, if you look over at this group of islands, it's about 27 miles long. From the bottom, we have Pass Agril going up 27 miles up to Clearwater Beach and Island Estates. Now, I've laid out 16 little towns that are in this 27 miles. Most people can figure out 12 or 13 because different towns, there's a couple of towns inside of other towns. The interesting thing about that is that each little town stands on its own, even though it might be part of a bigger town. The people that live in the little towns don't think they're part of big towns. So what we'll do is we'll go from my view of 16 towns on the Barrier Islands, and I'm including Isla del Sol and Tierra Verde as part of the Barrier Islands. The Barrier Islands are 27 miles along the Gulf of Mexico here. A barrier island was created, either man-made or dredged up, or a combination of the two. And they originally acted as a barrier for hurricanes. So all the rich people lived on the mainland. They came over to the Barrier Islands to fish. They didn't go there to live. Until in the 20s, people came over on their boats to Pass Agril, which is right at the end of Pinellas County. And they came fishing, and then they put a tent up, and then they brought a little barge over, and then they started building up the islands all the way up. They used to have a bunch of old trees and a lot of mosquitoes, and nobody wanted to live here. And we'll get into that a little bit later, because the Barrier Islands, when people started living on them, they were no longer a barrier to hurricanes. They were right in the way of hurricanes. So if we start down at the bottom at Pass Agril, you come over the Bayway. If you came down 275 across the Bayway Bridge to St. Pete Beach, St. Pete Beach has a portion of it that's called Pass Agril. The very tip of St. Pete Beach is Pass Agril. But don't tell the people in Pass Agril that they live in St. Pete Beach, because Pass Agril is a unique little town, and it costs more money to live in Pass Agril than it does in St. Pete Beach, and it's the same little island. So as we go up to St. Pete Beach has a couple of 4-star hotels, and they've tried to build other hotels, but development has been pretty well slowed down over the last 10 years by local residents. It seems that when anybody goes into a new little area, whether it be Florida, Hawaii, LA, once people move into an area, it's not in my backyard. I don't want any growth from where I bought. I wanted everything to be original and pristine, just like I bought it. It can't always be that way, but in St. Pete Beach, development was stopped over the last 10 years or so. So we have Pass Agril that doesn't think they're part of St. Pete Beach, and we got St. Pete Beach that doesn't think they're part of Pass Agril. And then we go over a little bridge into Treasure Island. But before we get to Treasure Island, we go into a little thing that's like Pass Agril, and that's called Sunset Beach. And Sunset Beach is kind of a hodgepodge of really, really little houses and off-size lots that if you knock the house down, you might have a 38 by 42 foot lot. What are you going to build on it? But it's a little quaint little town with a couple bars and restaurants on it, and people really like it because it's off the beaten path right here. But it is part of Treasure Island. Treasure Island has a lot of islands, fingers, little residential areas of different price ranges, and we'll get into lot prices in a couple of minutes. Once you get off Treasure Island, you go into Johns Pass, which is not a town, it's just a little portion of Madeira Beach, which is the next little town up on our 16th town. Madeira Beach, I live in it, and I've always called it the slum of the beaches. Because if you take Treasure Island, there was one developer, Jack Apple Homes, built about 2,500 homes in Treasure Island, and they were all the same. And they were the cruiser model 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, and they were all contiguous lots that were built up and became a nice little homestead for people over the years, over the last 30, 40 years. Jack Apple just passed away at 92 years of age, and he built 9,000 homes in his career, 9,000. He built 2,500 homes in Treasure Island. He went over to Apollo Beach, where our main office is, and built 1,500 homes. He built those later than he built the ones in Treasure Island. We saw the ones in Treasure Island evolve from single family, cruiser 1, 2, 3s, and 4s, to people starting putting second stories on them, and then going under what we call the 50% rule, where they would tear down a portion of the house, build it up, get it reappraised at a higher value, build 50% higher, then appraise it again. And some of those Apple homes have turned into 5, 6, 7, 8,000 square foot homes over the years. So Treasure Island became a pretty nice little community with quite a few motels and hotels, and a lot of nice little different residential communities. Treasure Island has at 107th Avenue, it really, road goes straight down to Central Avenue. It turns into Central Avenue, which goes right down to downtown St. Pete, which ironically, the prices in downtown St. Pete have in some areas escalated over the prices of the beach. Now, it's because a long time ago there was a big dispute between Tampa and St. Pete on which was going to develop their downtown better. Tampa decided to spread out their downtown into Channel Side and Harbor Island and different places, so they didn't have the concentrated growth that St. Pete did. St. Pete was years back was the land of shuffleboard courts and older people, and now hotels have built up and 30, 40-story condos and very expensive properties down there, and it's a vibrant place where young and old love to go. Some of the older people from the beaches are retiring and going downtown, and the younger people are gravitating down there anyway. So Treasure Island having a direct path from the beach downtown, you have Central Avenue that goes 2 ways to downtown and back, but if you want to go down quick, they have a First Avenue South that's one way up going all the way down, and then First Avenue North that goes all the way back. So it's like a little gateway to downtown St. Pete. So as we go past Treasure Island to Johns Pass, that's Madeira Beach. And Madeira Beach, I think, has the most potential for development into a little cozy hometown place. There have been 2 recent developments approved by the city. Both developments, the residents filed lawsuits on to stop them from developing the property. Those lawsuits are being contested, and we're not sure what's going to happen, but we think they'll be developed. That will give 3 or 4 new hotels, 150 to 250 room hotels, and a lot of beach development going there. Once you leave Madeira Beach, the next little town is called Reddington Beach. Reddington Beach is a residential community. Along the beach, it has the most number of single-family homes on the sand. There's 66 single-family homes in a row that have no motels next to them, nor condos. The challenge with Reddington Beach is that there've been a lot of fights going on with residents about short-term rentals, which is up in the air whether they're legal or unlegal. There's lawsuits going back and forth, as you find in any resort area where the people don't want to have change. Once we go up from Reddington Beach, we have 3 Reddingtons. We have Reddington Beach, then North Reddington Beach, which is a lot of condos, not a whole lot of single-family homes, have single-family homes scattered amongst them. Then you go up to Reddington Shores. Reddington Shores is interesting because it's a little tiny town, and it has a 5-story city hall with their they spent a lot of money. Really nice. And the next town up above Reddington Shores is Indian Shores, which is kind of neat because it's one of the only places in the state of Florida where you can have a home on the Gulf of Mexico and you can keep your boat kind of in your front yard. Of course, there's Gulf Boulevard that you have to cross before you get to your boat dock, but there aren't many places other than parts of Palm Beach and County and some parts of Fort Lauderdale that have waterfront, oceanfront properties with the boats on the intercoastal. After Indian Shores, we go into Indian Rocks Beach. Indian Rocks Beach used to be, and still to a certain extent is, the place where a lot of the people from Tampa that live in Tampa have their weekend homes. I think that's mostly because when people would come over from Tampa, Hillsborough County, they could come over on the Courtney Campbell or the Howard Franklin and go right over to Indian Rocks Beach before Pinellas County got so crowded and the roads from going over to the beaches got so crowded. So if you look at coming from the airport across the Courtney Campbell to Clearwater Beach, which we'll get to in a minute, you would look and say that's the shortest drive to get to the Gulf of Mexico, but it really isn't. It's really shorter to go from the airport across the Howard Franklin all the way down here and across the Bayway to St. Pete Beach, because it's highway all the way. Once you get off I-75 or the Courtney Campbell, you're into bumper-to-bumper traffic getting over to the beach, especially when you get into Clearwater Beach. So once we get past Indian Rocks Beach, which has a combination of some hotels and condos on the beach and some single-family homes on the beach, you get into Bel Air Beach. Bel Air Beach is the most exclusive beach on the Barrier Islands. It has the biggest lots on the beach, and it has the biggest homes. There's a couple of 25,000 square foot homes going up right now on Bel Air Beach. It's pretty exclusive because they don't even have any beach access for the public. And they don't let I don't think they do yet, have the beach trolley with a stop on Bel Air Beach. So they want to get all us riffraff, so we just go right through Bel Air Beach so we don't stop and clutter up their beaches, which are not their beaches. All the beaches in Florida are public beaches. So what makes each little community kind of different is the number of beach accesses that each little town has to make it convenient for those of us that do not live on the beach to access the beach. So once we get past Bel Air Beach, we go into Sand Key. Sand Key is almost all condos on the beach and very high-end condos. I have this little joke about Sand Key Beach that I know that I'm in Sand Key when I see people walking their dogs along the street with a little baggie full of dog poop. I make fun of it a little bit because many of the restrictions in some of these very high-end hotels, you might have to wear an armband with your identification and a collared shirt to get to the pool.
Oh.
So you guys can't see me, but I have my flip-flops on and my jeans. So, you know, I wouldn't qualify for a Sand Key to be a Sand Key resident. Once you get past Sand Key, you get into Clearwater Beach. Clearwater Beach is a very interesting town because it has, I don't consider it two towns, but there's Clearwater Beach and there's North Clearwater Beach. Clearwater Beach is the only area along the beach with 5-star hotels. And growth has been controlled as far as resort areas in Florida go, but according to people along the Barrier Islands, it's been totally out of control. I consider it very much like I used to live in Miami for a long time, very similar to a non-Spanish South Beach. And I mean non-Spanish because in South Beach, you eat dinner at 11 or 12 o'clock at night. And the last time I was there, they came at 11 o'clock at night, knocked on our door, and gave us a set of earplugs. And I said, "What are these for?" And they said, "Well, the band starts at 1 o'clock after the people start eating, and then they hang out at the pool, and the band really goes wild. So if you want to get any sleep tonight, put your earplugs in." It's not that way on Clearwater Beach, but it is similar in that there's a lot of spring break and a lot of parties going, 5-star hotels and high-end restaurants, and a lot of boat tours and fishing tours and a lot of excitement and all that stuff. Tall buildings and a lot of controversy over that. However, residents are against it pretty much, but visitors love it. And all the other people down along the beach, the people in St. Pete Beach, are very happy that they stopped development because all the little towns that are trying to develop along the Barrier Islands are saying, "Thank God we're not Clearwater Beach." And many want to stop development so they don't have their little towns develop into Clearwater Beach. They can't develop into Clearwater Beach because up and down these islands, there's not much land. It's mostly all developed. So if you're going to develop hotels, motels, and big condos, you're going to have to put together assemblages of properties that are left on the beach. The last of the 16 little communities that I brought up is right between Clearwater Beach and downtown Clearwater, and it's a very little unique, really cool little place called Island Estates. And it's a combination of a lot of single-family homes, some very expensive, a lot of condos, as they have their own little shopping center and post office, and there's only one way to get in and one way to get out. So it's like their own little private town, but it is really part of Clearwater Beach. So those are the 16 towns that I have outlined. Now, if we look at all of Pinellas County, the difference between Pinellas County mainland and Pinellas County Barrier Islands is the price of the dirt, or in this case, the sand. So I like to say, under all is the land, part of the Constitution. And the price of the land generally dictates the price of the land and the house. So the example that I use is if we take a lot, and we can all picture a 50 by 100 foot lot. So if we took a 50 by 100 foot lot and we put it in Seminole, or we put it in Largo, or we put it in any other little township in Pinellas County, you could buy that lot for about $20,000. So if you put a house on it, you can have a house and a lot for $125,000, $150,000 to $200,000 for a very nice home on a nice little 50 by 100 foot lot. Once you take that lot, and imagine putting that lot on a great big flatbed truck and trucking it over across to Madeira Beach. And let's say we take that lot and we take it right into the middle of Madeira Beach and we put it not on the water. That lot, that average price of that lot is going to be $200,000. The same piece of dirt that we were building a house on that, it now turns into a sandy piece of dirt, not on the water, on the Barrier Islands, for around $200,000. Now that's plus or minus 10 or 20%, depending upon whether the lot's bigger than 50 by 100, whether it's in a nicer neighborhood than another area or whatever. But a rule of thumb is that it's about 10 times more to pull that lot across the bridge as it is to build on one side of the bridge. Now you would say, well, why wouldn't you just buy a lot right here and drive 10 minutes to the beach? Well, many people do. However, we're talking about real estate and we're talking about supply and demand. So there's many, many more lots on the mainland than there are on the Barrier Islands. People generally move to Florida for the weather and the water. And so it's a rule of thumb that the biggest piece of water that you are on, the bigger the piece of water, the more expensive your lot will be. So you know that if you're somewhere up in Georgia on a river, that lot is more expensive than not on a river. If it's on a lake, it may be more expensive than on the river. When you come into Florida, if it's on a Florida river, it's worth a little bit more. If it's on a Florida lake, it's worth a little bit more. When you get into the waterfront, if the lot happens to be on the Barrier Islands, either on the east coast or the west coast of Florida, it's worth more money than on the mainland. So if we take the piece of sand or dirt, 50 by 100 foot lot that is in Madeira Beach, not on the water, and we just move it across the street to one of the little canals that don't have really a great view, it's across from another canal, that lot just doubled in price. Now, this will really blow your mind. When you take that same piece of dirt at 400,000, put it on the back of a truck and drive it 2 or 3 blocks away and put it on the sand of the Gulf of Mexico, guess what it is? 1,500,000. You now then value the property per front foot. And currently the average price of land, depending upon which part of the Barrier Island you are, is about $30,000 a front foot. Now, if you took that 50-foot lot at $30,000 a front foot, it comes to $1.5 million. What's the front footage cost of a $20,000 lot, 50-foot lot in Pinellas Park? It's 50 feet wide, and it's $20,000. What's that? $100 a square front foot? $100 times 50 is 5,000. I don't know. $40 a square foot. $40 a square foot. On the Gulf of Mexico, the same piece of dirt is $30,000 a front foot. So a 100-foot lot on the Gulf of Mexico is $3 million. Okay, get it?
Yeah.
So why would someone not buy a lot for $20,000 and build a house here? What happens when real estate appreciates? Does the land on the mainland appreciate slower or faster than the land on the beach? Much slower. So when we had the last downturn on the Gulf of Mexico, the dollars per square foot for the Gulf front lots was $15,000 a front foot. All right, so $15,000 for a 50-foot lot was $750,000 for a 50-foot lot on the Gulf of Mexico. It's now $1.5 million. When the next downturn comes, if it's like the last 4 recessions that I've been in, the Gulf front never goes down as far as it was before, and the next upturn, it always goes up higher. The same thing with the canal lots, the same thing with the lots not on the water but across the street from the beach. Now, ironically, when you get to the Gulf of Mexico at $30,000 a front foot, and you have that 50-foot lot at $1.5 million, if you go to Palm Beach and the east coast of Florida, that $1.5 million lot could be $3 or $4 or $5 million. Now, remember what I said, the bigger the body of water, the more the land is worth. Now, so the Gulf of Mexico is a smaller body of water than the Atlantic Ocean, right?
Yeah.
What's the bigger body of water in the United States than the Atlantic Ocean? Pacific Ocean. So when you go out to Manhattan Beach in California, or go to Newport Beach in California, you're paying $10 million for a lot on the Pacific Ocean, or $20 million for a lot on the Pacific Ocean. So under all is the land. Now, when we look at migration through the state of Florida, Miami's the biggest city in Florida. Miami has become an international city. It started when the Cubans came over from Cuba. It has moved into South Americans coming up and living in Miami. Chinese coming and living in Miami. Russians coming in, living in Miami. England, people from England coming in. Miami is truly an international city. And because of the international nature of the city, it attracts people that want to be with other international people, and they tend to bid up the prices very, very high. When they bid up the prices high in an international city, they cause what's called bubbles. Bubbles get bigger and bigger when people want to congregate with other people from their nationalities, and they go in competition with houses. One of the biggest bubbles in the world right now is London, Vancouver, British Columbia, and Canada. British Columbia and Canada. I was, up there a few months ago, looked at tear down houses, lots, not on the water, but overlooking the water in North and West Vancouver on the mountainside, that were tear downs at $8 to $14 million for the land. They were building $20 to $30 million houses. Across from where I was staying, there was a house that was built for $15 million that was occupied by a Chinese student, 14 years of age, and a guard.
Yeah. The
parents had built the $20 million house, put their kid in school in Vancouver, and had the guard watching the kid that he would, or, smoke pot with him or whatever. So That bubble in Vancouver got so big that they needed to stop the growth of real estate there because the people that had to work in the service industries in Vancouver had an hour-and-a-half drive to get to work because they couldn't find anything to rent in Vancouver. So they had to travel that far. Now, we're talking about real beach talk. All right, and now I'm in Vancouver. We're talking about parts of St. Pete Beach that are now Pass-a-Grille, and that affects the Pass-a-Grille prices are higher than the St. Pete prices. So it's all very hyper-local, this whole market that we're talking about on the beach. But why would I be talking about a bubble in Vancouver affecting what's happening on the beaches on the Barrier Islands in Pinellas County? Because people are coming here, and this happens to be with some of these very high prices that I just quoted you, looks to be the best values in the state of Florida. Now, if they're the best values in the state of Florida for waterfront property, Gulf of Mexico front property at $30,000 a front foot, and we're looking at stuff on the east coast of Florida at $40,000 or $50,000 a front foot. There's a lot of people that have houses over here that now are coming over here. So there was a migration from the world to the biggest communities in the world, like Vancouver. The bubble in Vancouver has now spread to Toronto. So now we're in a huge bubble in Toronto. The people in Toronto, because of the change in dollar from the Canadian dollar to the US dollar, everybody that comes from Vancouver, from Canada, that comes down here and sells one of the houses that they own in Florida, they're making a 30 or 40% bonus by selling what they own here. We've had 13 to 15% of our investment money coming in during the season from Canadians. Right now, Canadians don't want to come and buy something here because it's costing them 30% more to buy. So how is that international market affecting our local market? Tremendously. So real estate agents who know Canadian sellers, they might be suggesting to the Canadians that they be selling their property because they're going to make 30 or 40%. Other side, when a buyer's coming down, a buyer from Canada is coming down and looking, but there aren't a lot of them buying. In order to stop the bubble in Vancouver, they assessed a 15% surcharge on anybody from out of Vancouver, out of Canada, that bought property in Canada. So to buy $100 million property, you had to give the government $150,000 in order to buy that property. Real estate sales in Vancouver in 30 days dropped 95% and stopped a lot of the investment in there until they just changed it and said, well, you're going to still have to pay, but we'll give you citizenship, track to citizenship if you pay that money. So now they're continuing to get Russian, Chinese, Japanese investment to Canada.
Can they do that?
They can do whatever they want. So
And then they'll all come here.
Huh?
And then they'll all come here again.
Yeah.
Citizenship.
Which we are doing now with something called an EB-5 visa, where someone can invest like $500,000 into a business. That EB-5 visa looks like it's going away at the end of this year, around September or so. Okay, so am I digressing by going to Canada and talking about what's happening down here? No, because what's happening in Canada is affecting here because a good percentage of our economy in Florida comes from our Canadian neighbors. Because we now have Miami in a bubble with people buying property in Miami, I've heard that there are more condos on the books to be built in Miami-Dade County than exists now. Where are the people going to come to live in there? I don't know. So what happened when Miami got to be such a international city, a lot of people didn't like to live in Miami anymore because it was too crowded. So they came across Alligator Alley to Naples, Florida, which is down south. And Naples was a sleepy little town. I was a pilot, and one time I lost an engine and had to land at Naples Airport. It took me a day to find somebody to fix the airplane because there's nobody in Naples. So, and ironically, a year ago, I had a customer in that had a big house in Naples and was buying up in Pinellas County. And he said, I can't stand Naples anymore because every Friday afternoon, I can't hear myself think and I can't enjoy the beach because of all the private jets that are flying in for their beachfront homes that they bought in Naples. So after people got finished buying in Naples, and if you go walk the beach along Naples, it looks like a series of mini Don Cesar hotels built along the beach, and you know, hundreds of them that are almost the size of mini Don Cesar, and they're single family homes and not many people in them. I guess those are the guys that are flying them in the private jets. So once Naples got a little bit crowded, people started moving up to Sarasota County. I'm skipping Charlotte County and Lehigh Acres and all those places because those were the places that finally stopped the development of dredge and fill islands. So it was, Charlotte County was a series of canals that were man-made, and some of them went nowhere. And there were airlines that flew people from all over the world into Charlotte County and Lehigh Acres to fly and buy lots for so much down and so much a month to buy your dream lot. Yeah, it did. Now it did, but it's been like 40 years. But it happened that there were so many of these lots sold that in order to really kick off development, I guess it was probably 10 years ago, there were companies that came up and said that we will give you $1,500 cash for any lot in Port Charlotte or Charlotte County or whatever. I don't know that much about the area, but I know that happened. And people said, "Wait a minute! I've had 15,000 invested in this lot. You're going to give me 1,500?" Well, they were paying taxes on it, and they weren't using it, and the canals went to nowhere, and so a lot of people sold for cheap, and that brought developers and builders, and they started building up. But you have to kind of jump over Charlotte County. No offense to the people in Charlotte County, but the migration of the money people moved from Naples up to Sarasota and Longboat Key. Then we found we still had this little Anna Maria Island that was such a neat little place to go. And then it was, I think originally a lot of German investors came over and started buying up Anna Maria Island and getting that real crowded. So that developed there. And then people moved up into Pinellas County. Probably in the last 10 years or so, it really started getting popular as Tampa became more popular and St. Pete became more popular, because when people come to resort areas, they want to do something. So with all the sports teams here and the size of Tampa International Airport and the availability of flights from all over the world nonstop coming in here, it became a place to be that was sometimes more desirable than Sarasota, because there weren't the number of flights going into Sarasota as here, and certainly not as many in Fort Myers and Naples. Okay, so because of things to do, Pinellas County became very popular. And we still had these little 16 little communities along the beach that all have a different personality. And as we get into beach talks further, we'll take every week a different community and just show you how different that is. Not only with prices, but with the type of people that live there, the type of restaurants that are there, the activities to do, and that sort of thing. Now, the really interesting thing is that migration, the migration that I'm talking about a period from the 60s. I moved to Miami in 1965, just when the Cubans were starting to come in. And they came into Miami, and they settled around where the Orange Bowl was, which is really a whole bunch of rundown houses. And there'd be 2 or 3 families that would buy a house and move into one, and then the whole group would fix up the house real neat. They'd leave it for one, and they'd move to another. And they did that all over Miami, especially in Hialeah, which was mostly a Spanish thing. So I'm talking about migration from in the middle 60s to right now. Moved over to Naples, then to Sarasota. Longboat Key became very, very popular in the last 20 years or so, and Pinellas County in the last 10 years or so. And now we look, the natural migration from Miami up here, the natural migration would be north, right? Well, there's nothing north. When you go from Dunedin, right north of Clearwater Beach, to Pensacola, Fort Walton Beach, and the Panhandle, you really have nothing except for mangroves. You don't have any beaches except for Cedar Key a little bit, but it's pretty well out of the nice place to go visit, but it's not a lot of people want to live there. But when you get up to the Panhandle, the climate is different. The clientele is different. It's mostly people from Alabama, Louisiana, around there, and it's a very big resort area. But it's a 6-hour drive from Pinellas County to get up there. So it kind of looks like the future of Florida could be in this county. Now, if the future is in this county and the prices are cheaper than anywhere else in the state, if you have your customers and they want to be in Pinellas County and they see this real nice house for $250,000 in Pinellas Park, and they see a not so nice house for $250,000 on the Barrier Islands, which is the better investment for them? It depends. Depends on what they want. The Barrier Island properties, if history repeats itself, which it generally does, the appreciation in Barrier Island properties is generally greater than mainland properties. The appreciation in a $200,000 lot would be more than in a $10,000 lot or a $20,000 lot. But people get sticker shock. We had a guy over this weekend that bought a house in Wesley Chapel for $250,000. He wants to buy a house in Pinellas County at $250,000. We showed him houses, or we showed him condos in Pinellas County for $250,000, and he didn't like them because he had a single-family house in Wesley Chapel. But his goal is, he's an IT guy from California. What are the prices like in California compared to here? 3-4 times more. So his goal is to buy one house a year for the next 3 or 4 years, and then sell the houses. He's in IT, so he can work anywhere, and then move to here and sell the other houses and buy a nice house and move his family here. So what would you advise someone like that? Would you advise him to buy 4 nice homes in Wesley Chapel, or would you advise him to buy a condo hotel in Madeira Beach that cash flows with 60 or 70% occupancy and gives him money in his pocket and appreciates more. The house in Wesley Chapel in 3 years will be worth 10% more than it is right now, or 20% more. The house that he buys over here might be worth 50% more, or like the lot from on the Gulf of Mexico, from 15,000 a front foot to 30,000. So you become the advisors to your clients, and based on what their lifestyle is and what they want their end game to be like, you have to find out what they want.
So are you selling a condo motel to this guy, or you just selling a condo, or you just?
No, actually, what he ended up doing is saying, I'm going to buy another house in Wesley Chapel because none of the houses I saw in Pinellas County anywhere near what I could buy there, which is true. But as an investment and a lifestyle, for some people, they would rather be close to a beach than
Yeah.
in Wesley Chapel.
Yeah.
So,
That's why they did that.
all right, so that gets into one major challenge that we have on the beaches that I don't really know where this is going, but it has to do with FEMA. And it has to do with barrier islands, so we're running low on time. The barrier islands, think of them as a barrier, a protector of the mainland from storms. When we had two major hurricanes called Sandy and Katrina, FEMA got hit very hard with spending money to help the people that were in trouble from Sandy and Katrina. After those two hurricanes, there was a lot of fraud, a lot of mismanagement, a lot of money spent. And in 2013, FEMA said, we're going to raise everybody's flood insurance that has a flood-prone house to, for example, from $3,000 a year to $13,000 a year.
Oh, or more.
It caused an uprising along the beaches. It seems that Pinellas County, Florida, is the most affected county in the United States for flood-prone areas, although we haven't flooded a whole lot. So what happened, short story, is that there was such an outcry that FEMA said that they would put off the decision for 4 years. That's from 2013. September 30th of this year, FEMA stops all subsidies for flood insurance.
Did they vote on that, or are they just gonna stop it?
It's going to Congress to vote on it, but FEMA owes the U.S. government $25 billion. The U.S. government wants to get it back. So we're not sure where it's going to go, but we know that 75% of all the single-family homes along the barrier islands are below the floodplain in one of two zones, either an A zone or a V zone. A V zone is a velocity zone. It's prone to have direct attacks by the hurricane. An A zone is blocked by some houses or condos and will be affected also. So if 75% of the houses are below the floodplain, then 25% that are above, are they worth more money or less money?
More.
They have to be worth more money. So as someone tears down one of the old flood-prone houses and builds a new house on that, that goes into the 25%. So does it make financial sense for someone to buy an old house and tear it down and build a new house? That depends. Yes, it makes sense. However, in future weeks, we'll talk about why it makes sense and why it doesn't make sense. The only way it makes sense is if you can build a new house at a rational amount of money. And right now, because there aren't many big builders that are along the beaches, you're depending upon the mom and pop builders out of the pickup truck to build you a custom home on your lot. Custom homes always cost more money than standard stock cookie cutter homes. So building a cookie cutter home on the beach, if it can be done over and over again, is a way to give the people that own these below level homes an opportunity to build a new house and have low or no flood insurance, or build a new house and sell it and have equity in their land. So to sum up, if we have the cheapest waterfront real estate in the state of Florida, which if it's not the cheapest, it's close to. You might find some areas over on the East Coast up north of Daytona Beach and south of Jacksonville that might be a little cheaper, but you don't have the amenities that we have here. So the best value would be the Pinellas County beaches. So when your customers come in, or if you are a customer, you might look very closely at the appreciation value of the lowest prices in the state of Florida and how to make them some of the highest, because they will naturally go higher because there's no migration place after Pinellas County until you get into Fort Walton County and Pensacola County up north. So what I'd like to do, I don't know how many people are watching this, but I would like your comments and I would like your questions. I'd like your suggestions. Every week we are only going to be talking about things that affect agents, buyers, and sellers of beach, single-family houses, condos, commercial property, motels, hotels, and whatever else affects us on the beach. I think the value of a real estate agent is to gather and transmit knowledge. If we have more knowledge than anybody else, we're going to get more customers than anybody else. So thanks for tuning in, and see you next week. Anything? 6 viewers. 6?
Oh, that's on.
That's a start.
That's a good start.
So that-
What's that?